here we are again. So it's a pleasure to be with you again. Some participants are still arriving from their rooms. As you know, no, I was going to make a joke about COVID and confinement and borders, but let's skip that. So I would actually like to have a little moment while participants are still arriving to have a little bit of sharing from you. How has it been, before we go into the concrete reports from each group? Maybe what were the, personally, what were some of the highlights that you got from today's discussions? What have you learned? Is there something that inspired you? How did these breakout discussions went? So I would like to ask you now to share a little bit. Maybe we take 5 minutes as the other participants are coming. So anybody would like to share?
Well, Andre, then I might say something. Thank you. Well, I was very inspired by a lady from Italy who talked about the importance of substituting mineral fertilizer by organic fertilizer. And I like that because that's also something which Dutch farmers say very often. And it's very nice that such an idea is also in the forefront in Italy.
Thank you so much. Very interesting. Anybody else?
I would like to share something.
Go ahead.
Well, something that I myself thought, but I was really happy to hear also that this emerged, is that about all this attention on agriculture and the emission from agriculture. I think what is very important is change the perspective and the narrative, as someone said, and focusing on the resilience. So it's not only about emission, but it's preserving our land for the future. And we are, with the current systems, we are actually degrading soils, and we are actually making that we have loss of organic matter in many. Well, of course, loss of organic matter means also emissions, but what the focus should be is actually how we preserve for the future, and actually sustainable practices to do that. So that's, and I think now with the climate change, the focus is really on, we kind of forget that also sustainable, increasing biodiversity and sustainable practices are actually also helping climate change as a consequence, and not just about trying to balance the emissions. If you focus on the good things that come from sustainable agriculture, we get much better reward.
Thank you very much, Valentina. So the time is for you. So anybody, was there anything interesting that you learned today, that you shared, that inspired you, that you would like to comment? Or maybe how was the session for you? Any relevant insight, personal insight?
Hi, perhaps, Andre.
Hi,
The possibility of connecting farms, so like promoting also for cap regulation, that the possibility of cross links between different farms, and so promote collaborations. So when a farm have an output that could be a waste product or an input for another farm, my neighbor, at the local level. So promoting the construction of a net that is more an agroecology net, not only sharing input, but understanding this very, very subtle but very, very important input-output relation. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I think now almost all the participants are here, so let's start listening to the reports. We have a little bit of time. We want to listen for all the reports and get some comments from the other people that were in other rooms and could not participate in this kind of agriculture, but maybe you have some opinions yourselves or some questions, and maybe Anna can also give some of her insights as coordinating expert. So I would like to invite the group on permanent crops. if you would like to present us with the main conclusions from your group. Do we have already a rapporteur, somebody that wants to speak?
Yes, for example, I can report to my group. I don't remember if we were the first or the second group, subgroup. Can I try to share the screen? No, it's not. I'm not allowed for this.
I think you can be allowed. Zeus, can you create this possibility?
Yeah.
Okay.
Be aware that you have, if somebody, we have 5 minutes per group. So
okay, I will be very quickly. Yeah. So you can see my screen. Can you confirm? Yeah. Okay. So we were. Our topic was permanent crop, of course, and we had 2 questions, but we mainly focused only on the first one. So we will need another workshop maybe to discuss better. But of course, I can try to summarize the point on the first question. We agreed that to achieve carbon neutrality, the first step should be, of course, to reduce the greenhouse gas from the use of fertilizer, input for energy, for mechanical operation. Then the other important part is, of course, to increase carbon sink in the soils mainly. So another important part is to reduce mineralization of soil carbon in a cost-effective and energy-reduced way, of course. Reduce soil disturbance to a minimum to increase, again, as we say, the soil carbon sink. And also, another important part is played by the vegetation in inter-row space, especially, of course, in woody permanent crops. Another part important was the idea to keep the biomass that is produced in the crop, to maintain this biomass in the field as much as possible. For example, we were referring to pruning material. So it is important to make compost and leaving this material in the field. But considering also that there is a possibility to increase pest and disease in the field. So be careful with this point. But for example, we discussed the idea in sometimes if it is cost effective, of course, to remove for the moment, then composting somewhere and then come back again with the compost. But anyway, the important is to keep the biomass in the field. This point, reduced emission, was the first one, so sorry. Then another point was to think organic from the beginning, also before the cultivation. Consider, for example, the use of alternatives to deep soil cultivation, or using, for example, deep root crops, and considering also the biomass input before planting also. Then here we have the use of cover crop in inter-row and row spacing, because this is also a useful contribution in terms of climate change mitigation of emissions. Another important part is mimicking nature with the aim to increase biodiversity, for example, with insect and birds beneficial for the agricultural ecosystem. And for example, another part related to biodiversity was that we highlighted was to leave part of the field to nature, as for example, hedge or a little forest in the farm to reduce pests, increase biodiversity and carbon stock, reduce erosion, protect soils. Again, the use of compost, as we said. And the last point was related to the problem to share knowledge. Now to share this knowledge on the practice and solution among farmers. Therefore, as also Jacopo was mentioning before, it is important to have a local cooperation, to have a network, a district, for example, bio-district, where farmers can exchange their knowledge. Then we didn't have time, is my personal opinion. Sometimes carbon neutrality, because we have a scientific experience of this, carbon neutrality can be, of course, achieved at farm level, but also this level of district can be useful to have carbon neutrality at district level. So if a farm cannot arrive to a complete carbon neutrality, maybe this carbon neutrality can be achieved at a district level, where more farms can help each other. This was my personal. We didn't have time to discuss this point. Yes, this is all.
Thank you so much, Maria. To be my personal comment is that I'm impressed by the quality of your work and the synthesis you have made. So very good. Congratulations. Maybe somebody would like to ask any question or make any comment. Maybe you can stop sharing the screen.
Yeah.
Does anybody would like to make any comment or ask any question to Maria or the group?
Maybe I can add that Florian from Austria. The last 2 points are very important, and we have the so-called agricultural composting scheme established in Austria. So we have 400 composting plants, approximately 300 are run by farmers, and a lot of them are corporations between farmers collecting green waste, also food waste, and manure together, producing the compost and distributing it again to the participating farmers in the district. And this is supported by the district government or district authorities. And this was a very successful, decentralized, now 20 years ago, 30 years ago, a carbon sink strategy in the region and creating a regional consciousness and awareness about this side.
Thank you very much, Florian. I would actually have one question myself. Did you discuss challenges and barriers that farmers faced and encountered? Because you present all these great, amazing solutions, and it seems that the way forward is really straightforward. But did you also discuss challenges, and how did you overcome some of these barriers?
Yes, there was another file that indeed I cannot
It's
see.
okay. For now, it's okay. Then we see the report in detail. Just give us the overview.
Okay, so for example, I can, we discussed, for example, on the need to have, among other points, one point was to the need to have a standard to help to assess carbon neutrality. Because we saw different examples now of farms that are dealing with carbon neutrality, but we don't have a common standards, a common schemes to follow to really understand and assess the achievement in terms of carbon neutrality. So this was one of the points of the barriers that should be overcome.
Okay, thank you very much. So because we want to still go out of the day in time, let's go through all the groups, and then maybe we can discuss more together. Let's see. So let's see, just from the permanent crops, who was on the permanent crops? Can you raise your hand so that we know who participated in this amazing group? Can you raise your hands if you're in the permanent crops? Okay, some of you are with the video out, so we don't know. So thank you very much. So let's see who was in the annual crops. Which is the next group that I'm inviting to speak. Can you raise your hand if you are in annual crops? Okay, so not many people are raising hands. So do we have the rapporteur for this group?
Yes.
Thank you, Emmanuel. So can you give us your short report, an interesting report of your interesting conversation?
Yes. So we discussed a lot to start with about carbon sinks, how to increase the sink in annual crops. We highlighted the fact that we really need to increase the organic matter input, so either by using vegetables, so vegetable origin products such as cover crops or animal manure or even mixed origin products. So once this organic material is put in the field, there is the need to really foster the living soils, to activate the microbiome activity of the soil, to really be able to transform that organic matter into something that will stay in the soil. So for that, the key principles to preserve soil health should be applied. So maximize plant growth and diversity. Also keep the soil covered and also minimize soil disturbance. and this should allow to increase to increase the organic matter of the soil. Also, we highlighted the importance of having a diversified rotation, of replacing a mineral nitrogen input by organic ones, of also being more efficient in the input use, and also at a farm level, managing well semi-natural habitats, so like hedges or having grassed buffer strips to also preserve soil carbon. And at more general level, we also highlighted the fact that maybe a better the products cultivated under low carbon practices should be better valorized. So they should probably get a price increase to help shift practices. But of course, we also highlighted some things that are different between the countries in Europe and that should be overcome. So first, the availability of this organic matter, its quality and its price, because some regions have a lot of animal production, but some that have a more monoculture are maybe it's more difficult to get this organic matter. Also farm ownership, because when you rent a land, probably it's more difficult to implement practices to preserve soil, because it's something that takes a lot of time. Also, we highlighted the fact that, of course, in Europe, there are very different climatic and soil type contexts. So, for instance, cover crop development, cover crop implementation could be difficult in a region that is too dry, and in a region too wet, it could be hard for the grower to just sow the cover crop. So sometimes practices are not applicable everywhere, and it's sometimes better to rely on overall principles. And also, same as the other group, we highlighted the fact that there are no like official measuring tools in Europe to measure reduction of emissions and carbon sequestration. There is no really harmonization of these tools, so that is a limit.
Okay, so thank you very much, Emmanuel. I think it was very clear. Would anybody like to comment or question or compliment?
Well, can I pose a question to Emmanuel? I was curious if you had any example in your group of some farm that have actually tried to do this kind of estimations of their emissions and face these difficulties. Was there anybody who had that personal experience that you discussed?
It was expressed in the group. I can let the floor to the people involved in that. There was a lot of experience on the ground how to assess carbon, and but they came at the end. There is a lack of data to fine-tuning the methodology. There is not enough background sometimes. They can speak.
Maybe that's a good idea. If some of the participants in this group would like to share this experience, this concrete experience on doing these estimations.
So we have in Spain, hi, it's Manuel.
Hi.
We have sampled greenhouse gas emissions from rice fields in Andalusia, and we have compared them also with models, Cool Farm Tool, the NDC, and we are also using models for other projects in strawberry, also in Andalusia. And it's true that there are significant variations. For us, the most difficult part is what happens in the soil, how the organic carbon content is modeled, and how to predict the change in that that parameter. I think it's one of the hardest things. And I completely agree with Emmanuel's point. Yeah.
There are several carbon apps, that farmer-friendly carbon measuring apps that farmers can use, but I'm sure they're spread all over Europe. But I think some of them are pretty good.
Maybe you can share them in the harbor, where we have place to share some of these things for each other, okay? And also for EU Commission, I think this would be helpful.
I guess what was highlighted is the fact that there is no harmonized European official
methodology.
If you think about Cool Farm Tool, it's an association behind that. So
thank you very much, Manuel. I think maybe it's time that we hear from the third group. So let's
Thank
see.
you.
Yeah, thank you also, Anna, for your questions, and thank you, everybody. So let's hear from the intensive livestock group. Do we have the rapporteur ready?
So I'm the rapporteur.
Hello, John. Please, the floor is yours.
So we were guilty, like other groups, of focusing more on question 1 than question 2, and also more on the interesting practices and solutions, not just as much on the replicability of it. But let me just go through as best I can. The first thing we have here is the interesting practices around empowering farmers to be transparent in how they measure greenhouse gas emissions, how they measure carbon sequestration. And if you can measure it, can you get a net position and see how that changes over time? So having the right tools to measure, so this is building on the last intervention on this, and how should they vary on different farms and different soil types and different climate solutions. One of the key things we're saying too is actually, are there solutions out there that deliver multiple benefits and not just a carbon benefit? The one example was given using multi-species swards for intensive beef or dairy production, which can increase soil health, biodiversity, carbon sequestration, and considerably reduce nitrogen. So are there multifunctional solutions that we can use to deliver multiple goods? Looking at how we can better use more homegrown proteins, both in to help reducing emissions of transport or bringing vegetable plant-based proteins into Europe, but also making sure that what plant-based proteins we use have not come from places like rainforest or ground that was old rainforest. Other proxies that we can measure. Measuring soil carbon is very difficult. Can we use organic matter as a proxy for soil carbon? Can we accelerate our improvement in livestock genetics and how we actually use more efficient animal breeds to both drive efficiencies but reduce emissions? The role of improving animal health. A sick animal, the greenhouse gas emission per unit of output dramatically rises. So can we get our animal health right? Can we look at the manures? Can we look at anaerobic digestion, biomethane? Can we look at maybe separating that and seeing how that organic matter can go back out and actually help to drive carbon sequestration? Can we look to accelerate precision farming? We work on the principle, if you can't measure, you can't manage. So precision farming, the role of big data to actually help us in making better quality decisions. Within grassland management, can we look at actually young grasses can lead to less enteric methane production as such? Can we look at the wider farming systems? Again, we mentioned earlier on about recycling of manures and digestates to drive carbon. the introduction of agroforestry silver pasture that will deliver more than just carbon. In looking then at striking differences amongst different farms, one of the key things that was mentioned is the difference between farms, intensive livestock farms on high organic or peat soils vis-a-vis mineral soils. You need completely different solutions of how you look at the soils. Mineral soils can sequester, peat soils are a net source of greenhouse gas emissions. So how do we actually look at getting different solutions there? Being very careful you don't create perverse outcomes. So in our race to get like some arable and homegrown proteins in there, if you come from somewhere like Ireland where our grass has been down for very long periods of time, we don't want the ploughing up a long-term grass because it's the soils underneath are carbon rich. Also to the differences geographically from a solution for Mediterranean countries, for continental countries, whether you have irrigation or don't need irrigation, whether you're pasture-based or whether you're crop-based, all those things actually do create quite a difference. And we really do need to understand that. And it goes back to one of the comments. There is no silver bullet, is that there is a toolbox, and we have to pick the right tools out of that toolbox for each farm. And we need to empower decision makers with the right knowledge to make better quality decisions as they accelerate their journey to carbon neutrality. Thank you
very much, John. Thank you very much, John. You were also very clear. So is there anybody that would like to make a comment or a question or a compliment with some more information? Or
I would like, can I speak?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Andre. I just, maybe it was a misunderstanding, but I heard that John said that peatland are actually emitters. So I do agree that we have to keep consider the soil we are dealing with. But actually, I would make this note that peatland are not emitter. They actually, functional peatland are actually one of the best carbon sink systems on Earth. And the fact is that when they are mismanaged, and it's very urgent to actually make them, this soil stop emitting, so meaning re-wetting the soil. So because I'm working with peatland, I want to be sure that this is not misunderstood. And then maybe John just didn't specify that, so I want to make sure to specify that.
So thank you. Any more?
Yes, I want to ask a question to the people of this breakout group. Did you discuss the elephant in the room? One of the big impact of livestock on climate is just the fact that there are so many cows. So is there talked about solutions where as farmers we can have less cows but still can have an income?
That's a good question.
So
good question.
Okay, so we did in one of the pre-lunch breaks, we had this conversation, but it was coming from a different approach. Is there a wider society question to ask about the quantity of livestock products that we consume? Because at the moment, the industry responds to the consumption demand. And so one of the questions we asked is whether this group had, or whether this workshop has the remit to talk about actually getting consumption, behavioral change in consumption. We saw that as the main way. The industry only responds to consumption trends.
Thank you very much, John. Maybe one final comment on this, and then we go to the next group.
May I add a comment here?
Yes.
So I think this isn't just about consumption, but it's enabling farmers to transition wherever it is possible to more diversified forms of production and enabling markets for those outputs. So I think it's not just, I think it is something that we should also discuss within conversations where we're talking about farm strategies.
Can I add something about this question?
Yeah, you jumped in before I unmuted, so you gain your time. Go ahead.
Well, I think it's a very relevant question, but again, we should put the attention on what is the actual cost of meat. Now we focus on intensive farming, and then the meat becomes very cheap. But what if we actually count on the real cost of meat and to extensive farm, and then we have a farmer that should be rewarded for the quality and for the service that they provide to the environment, and not on the quantity. So it's again also that apply also for cropping and other agriculture system. We have to reward the quality, and then also we need policy actually rewarding farming for good practices. And then it's possible for farmers to have a sustainable business, which should be the case. No one wants to work for free.
Thank you very much, Valentina. So the question is also the transition from intensive back to extensive, and
less meat but better meat.
Yes. So maybe we can hear from mixed systems. I ask you again to mute your microphones, except for the rapporteur of the mixed systems and extensive livestock group. Do we have the rapporteur ready?
Yes.
So please go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I didn't take notes, so I hope somebody else is filling the template. I hate templates, so maybe somebody else is better in doing that. But we discussed, had a nice discussion in our breakout group, saying that mixed farms, extensive livestock farms actually are a good practice of carbon neutral farming. But why isn't not everybody aware of this? Well, if you look to policy, if you look to market, extensive livestock farms and mixed farming systems are not promoted, are not rewarded for what they are doing. Look to the CAP. CAP is really not supporting these farming systems. So we need to change the narrative in the way we talk about climate and carbon neutrality and so on. For instance, a lot of way carbon impact, climate impact is measured is about CO2 emission, carbon emission per unit of production, per unit milk, per unit meat, per unit tons of cereals, and so on. But that's the wrong way in talking about climate impact. Climate impact is about CO2, methane in the atmosphere, and that's the real impact. That molecule in the air, it doesn't matter if it's there produced for 1,000 liters of milk or for 10 liters of milk. The same molecule will have the same impact on climate change. So we need to change this narrative and focus on the real climate impact. And then you can see the positive impact of these extensive farming systems. So it's about how to measure. And this is very important, that science is also focusing on the way we talk, and the way we measure, the way we look on climate impact. And it's not only about climate. We need a holistic approach. It's about biodiversity. It's about nutrient cycles. It's about air. It's about water quality. It's also about social issues, economical issues. All these things need to be talked about together in a holistic approach, and therefore we don't need to measure only single things. We need to have multi-criteria analysis. Very important is a focus on farm income, because that's the most important for a farmer. Of course, that's obvious. But if we continue create and having a market like we have now, which only rewarding farmers for what they produce and the amount they produce, then we will only talk about efficiency and not about sufficiency. So we need to have other business model about how to reward farmers what they do for society, not only for their crop production, but also for the ecosystem services they provide. And that's very important, these new business models. And there are a lot of examples about it, small and big.
That you discussed today? Any that you discussed today specifically?
Yes. Well, important issues are look to the soil. The soil is very important. I think the other colleagues in the other breakout groups also manage that. And if you look on the way manure, grassland management can come together and give good soils, good carbon sequestration, you can see how grasslands and livestock can contribute to climate change mitigation and adaptation.
Okay, you should try to close, Kurt, because of time, okay?
Yes. Well, one thing I want to mention, which was a very good example, is agroforest strips in farmlands combined with livestock, with arable land, and so on, is very interesting because it combines different functions. It's good for climate, it's good for biodiversity, it can produce energy and give income to farmers. And another nice example is connect farmers to each other, because then you can close to circles, then you can work together, then you can look to the soil. If you work together, then this is a kind of a mixed farm, but on a super farm level.
Okay, thank you very much, Kurt. This was like a lecture and you didn't take notes, so very good. Congratulations for your ability to make a very coherent speech. So it was very interesting. Anybody would like to ask any question, any comment, or compliment with anything?
Well, can I pose a hopefully quick question?
Go ahead.
I would like to ask you, Kurt, if you discussed anything about how these examples of agroforestry can be applied in the different contexts. We were I mean, in Europe today, the large-scale agroforestry systems are mainly in the south. Before in time, there were large agroforestry areas in the Central and North Europe, but that's not the case. And much nowadays, and much of the attention that we get through this issue is through imported models of agroforestry. Did you discuss anything related to this? Do we have examples of application to larger scale in Europe of these kind of systems?
Well, we mentioned also that there are huge differences between all the different regions in Europe. And it's not difficult to import one solution from one region to the other. You need to adapt to the local situation. We did really discussed specific agroforestry systems adapted to the different regions. I'm a little bit familiar with agroforestry systems in my region, Western Europe, and there's a lot of experiments with those strips, with combining fruit crops with chicken, for instance. But now some new is to create forage crops on trees for livestock. It's an experiment where I'm involved with. So there's a lot of things going on, and we are also looking to the past, because in the past there were agroforestry systems in our local farming systems in Western Europe, but we forgot them. And now we're trying to inspire us back about these ancient farming systems. But there's a lot of work to do on this topic.
Okay, thank you. That's really nice to hear.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was really interesting. I think it's more or less time for us to go to the final parts of our program, as we wanted to basically invite you to create the next conversations. So this is not the end of our workshop. We are at half of the conversations of our workshop, and it will continue tomorrow. And what we would like is actually to ask you, what should we be talking about tomorrow? So maybe before we go, I would like to ask if there is anybody that has one final comment regarding these 4 different presentations and topics that we just had, or if not, we can go and jump to this next stage.
May I just add one very short experience since 10 years? There is in a region called eco-region of Kindorf in Styria in Austria. And there is a humus project. This is a carbon trading project for farmers, increasing and sequestering humus and soil organic matter in their soils. Nowadays, 120 farmers are participating at the range of 1,300 hectares. They receive 30 euros per ton CO2 and is controlled by an institute, by a research institute. And they have to show that they keep the achieved level of soil organic carbon in their soils for 5 years. If they don't manage that, and there are many measures included, humus, compost application, crop rotation, preventing black fallow and direct sowing, intercropping, whatever. So all what is possible in a certain area on a certain farm. And the budget or the money comes from companies, industrial companies, within a more traditional trading scheme, but they are obliged to show their efforts in their carbon and climate related activities in their factories, in their enterprises also. So it's not just payment, it's also an effort, additional effort in terms of climate change mitigation in their companies.
Thank you very much.
This is an example we could share to you.
Yeah, this is, I guess this is more of what we need, more of these examples. So if you want, feel free to post the link in the Harbor. And thank you very much for your contribution. So now I'd like to show the presentation of the next steps, which is presenting you a little bit what's going to happen tomorrow and giving you the insights on how can you help and how are you going to be essential in this process. So tomorrow we are going to start the day by a session called Boosting Implementation, which starts with inspiring examples of implementation of carbon neutral agriculture, but this time not so in farmers' presentation, but of projects that deal with these several aspects of implementing carbon neutral agriculture. And then we're going to build together the agenda. So the focus for tomorrow is on knowledge and innovation. What is the knowledge and innovation that we need, or that I need, in order to make carbon neutral a reality until 2030 or for the next 5 years? So we want to know in this domain, you know, we could be talking about money or policy, but we are asking you about knowledge and innovation, which is, let's say, the main pillar of EIP-AGRI. And so we are going to focus on this. And then after this, after creating the agenda together, you are going to decide what we're going to talk about. Then we're going to go into breakout sessions or parallel sessions in which we are actually going to debate what you're going to decide. So in the next slide, I show you how is it going to be, okay? After the parallel sessions, we have the plenary conclusions, and we end the day basically by reflecting on all of this together. So we are going to use a methodology tomorrow called open space technology. The sessions are parallel sessions, like normal parallel sessions, but we're going to use a different kind of way of setting the agenda. Normally, the organizers, they decide what we are going to talk about, or what you are going to talk about, but we're going to do it differently because we want to do it fully participatory. We are kind of replicating the coffee breaks in a normal conference, in which you actually meet with the people that you want to talk exactly about what you want for the amount of time that you want and with the people that you want. So that's what we want to create tomorrow. We want to create the space for the most relevant conversations to happen. And for this, we're going to use these 4 principles of open space, which is what happens is the only thing that could have. So this means that you're going to talk about what you want, and there's no pre-assigned conclusions. You just have to make a report of what you discussed, but there's no expectations. And what happens is what has to happen. The second principle is whoever comes are the right people. So you can have meetings tomorrow with 5 people or 20 or 30 people, and whoever comes are the right people. They are the ones that are fully motivated to be there. And then the second principle, the third principle is whenever it starts is the right time. Here we're going to trick you a little bit because we need to organize this. So we're going to try to start at the right time, but you can finish earlier. And when it's over, it's over. Okay. So this means that the session can, we have tomorrow sessions of 1 hour, but they're intended to last 1 hour. So you have the room for 1 hour. But if they stop before, you can stop before and join another room. And if you want to continue in the afternoon, you can also do that. So you have to make a report after the first hour and report to plenary, to everybody. But you can actually set a continuous and start and continue after lunch. If you want, we will create the space for that. So in the next slide, we're showing you the law of 2 feet. So again, this is different from normal situation in which you go into a room and if you don't like, you feel like you're hurting the feelings of somebody if you move to another place. No, tomorrow you are free to use your 2 feet. So if you find yourself in a situation in which you are neither learning or contributing, you can move to another room. This means that you can start in a room, be there, contribute, learn, and then you can actually, in the middle of the meeting, move to another room, okay? Of course, you have to be cordial and nice about it. So it's not about room tourism in which you're jumping from one to the other just to check what's happening. It's about being in the right place so you can actually contribute, share your experiences with others, or learn. And there's normally 2 kinds of people. One are the bumblebees, which are pollinating and going from room to room, bringing ideas from one to the other. And the other ones are the butterflies, which take a little bit of time to see where they're going to land, and then they stay there for a lot of time. So in the next slide, I would like to ask Anna, just as our coordinating expert, just again to state why are we going to talk about this, and what is it? What is the main topic? Why is this relevant and interesting for us? And we hope this is motivating for you, Anna.
Yes, so this is just the main question that we pose to you in order to form these discussion groups. And remember this morning the discussion about if we want to be carbon neutral or go behind that. So actually here we're already thinking that we could go behind that. So what we're asking you is what knowledge and innovation do I or we need to make carbon neutral in 5 years? So in a rather close time frame, so that we can go behind that in the 2050 horizon. And so we propose that you discuss this question considering different issues such as the technology, the knowledge, the market, the demand sides, logistics, cooperation, a series of things that you might find are interesting to discuss related to this question.
Thank you very much, Anna. So the idea is that you follow from today and move into tomorrow. And the next slide is going to show us how are we actually going to do this. So not everybody can propose a topic. Otherwise, we have now 76 people in the room. So we'll be having 76 lonely conversations. So the idea is that the sum of you that have the most compelling things to say or interesting aspects to discuss, you write it. And then you place it in a room which is in a Padlet, similar to the harbor. We will show you in a few seconds. And then tomorrow morning, you present it in plenary. So you can think about it now. You can already write it today. Yeah, only 10 rooms available. So you can write it today, or you also have space to write it tomorrow. And then tomorrow, you present it like in 1 minute in plenary. And then after this, we have the rooms with the teams, and then you can choose which room you want to join, okay? So the next slide basically shows us a little bit how this is going to happen. You present your topics, then if you don't present, you just listen, and then you sign into your topic, and then we're going to review the agenda together to check if there's anything that needs adjustment. And the next slide basically shows us how how can you find this link? So in the platform, if you can find it today, I hope the platform is working well. Otherwise, tomorrow morning we can do this again. So you'll find on the left the topics for day 2, as you see on the PowerPoint presentation you're seeing now. This will open a link to a Padlet, and this Padlet has already the 10 rooms there. And what's going to happen is basically there's a space. You write the title of your not the presentation, the title of the topic you would like to talk about. You can make a short description below because you're going to explain it tomorrow in speaking, and you write your name. And when you do this, you know that you are responsible tomorrow to host this session. Okay, you'll have a supporter or a facilitator, but you'll be responsible for being in the session from the beginning to end. Okay, basically this is it. I think there's probably not much to present more about this now, except that we would like to invite you to start thinking about this now. And if you can start writing posts, then this will relax us for tomorrow. But if you only want to do it tomorrow, it's also okay, as we will have a little bit of time. Above all, I would like now to ask you to turn on your camera. Turn on your camera, everybody, and just give me a show of hands if this question is motivating for you. What knowledge and innovation do we need? Do you see the relevance in this? If you see this, if you think this is relevant, raise your hands. If you think this is not relevant at all, you just keep your hands low. So show us how relevant this is to you. Okay. So thank you very much. This shows us this is going to be a very interesting conversation tomorrow, as it was today. So the time is ending. We are 5 minutes to the 4:30, which was the time that we wanted to close the session for today. So you have time to go and feed your chickens or irrigate your garden if you're in a very drought area. I hope not. So to finish, I'm sorry, I'm not going to give a hand today anymore to the people, just for tomorrow. So to finish, I would like to ask closing words, some reflection on the day, first to Anna and then to Susanna. Anna, small reflections. Can you give us your insights or reflections for today?
Hi, Andrea. Thank you. And it was really nice and inspiring to hear your description of the open space tomorrow, I must say. It sounds really exciting. And well, so I will try to wrap up in a short time so that we finish on time and still can hear some words from Susanna. So, well, we start this morning by hear these ambitious goals from the European Commission regarding the climate neutrality and how this poses both opportunities and challenges to agriculture. And then during the breakout sessions, participants were discussing very much concrete examples within the different farm types, and this was the aim. And I was sneaked through all the sessions, and also from hearing in the reports, I could also listen to some transversal issues that came up in all of these groups. And there were quite some. I would just highlight a couple that I heard most repeated. And one of them was definitely the need for a standard methodology for measuring the sources and sinks in farms that we're discussing. And this would have to ensure transparency and repeatability, and that this would actually be the way to empower farmers to show their positive changes. Also heard everywhere in these groups was about how to integrate other environmental benefits when designing these measures, like if carbon neutral agriculture would be a part of a broader concept of, for instance, sustainable agriculture. So this came up many times, and many times words referring to goals broader were repeated, such as biodiversity, animal welfare, soil health, in order to maintain the different soil functions. This I heard several times in the different groups. Also, another issue that was coming up in all of them was this question, of course, about how the farmers can get the return from these efforts towards carbon neutrality or other services, and how this could go through different or new business models, or maybe through including the demand side in this discussion. Another issue that was mentioned was this need for knowledge exchange, networks, and collaborations. And well, I will stop by here. It's, like I said, this is just the highlight of the common things that I heard often in all of the groups. And I think this really point out some important things, and that I think will go on also discussing tomorrow, when we will have this boost of implementation and building knowledge. So
thank you very much, Anna.
Yeah, thank you. You will present Susanna, or give her the floor?
Yes, exactly. For the last.
See you tomorrow, everybody. Thank you so much for your participation.
Thank you, Anna, for your role. It has been amazing. So, Susanna, for the closing words and final reflections as well. In the end, I just have one short technical thing to say, but Susanna, for the closing words and final reflections, the floor is yours. Please.
Thank you, Andre, and also thanks to Anna for the very good wrap up. I think you didn't leave much for me to mention, because actually I totally agree with you. Those were the main topics and the main issues that I also captured in the different conversations. I think that is, for me, I mean, what I should say, I think it's amazing the amount of knowledge already out there, and the amount of innovations and the awareness, I think, of the whole community in relation with the importance of this topic for the agricultural sector. There are, of course, a lot of needs, a lot of challenges. I think mostly the conversations were focused on that, on highlighting the obstacles, what is needed, what should be there. Perhaps maybe for tomorrow, I don't know if it's possible to include this also in the conversation, but I would be personally particularly interested to learn also about the opportunities, what those cases that have worked, and the innovations that are working, why they are working. Is it because there is collaboration? Is it because there is I don't know, support from local authorities? I don't know. This type of aspects, I think, will be also interesting to look at beyond, of course, addressing the challenges. And this is also something that, of course, we take good note of it from the Commission side. I see my colleagues from other parts in the Commission are also connected, and I think it's being an extremely useful discussion also for them in their respective areas. For the research part, which is my part, I also took note of very interesting comments about the need to have a research looking at more holistic approaches, and not only focusing on one measure, on one, but really looking at holistic approaches. But I think this is we're moving really towards that approach, I think, in the with the new program. So it's a note taken about it, and we will try to support as much as we can. But I would be again interested to hear about the success stories and why those success stories are happening. This is how I would like to conclude. And thank you very much for your inputs and for your conversation and for the discussion. Very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susanna. It's been a pleasure to have you here. So maybe this opportunities reflection can be a topic for tomorrow. Maybe somebody can propose it for tomorrow, or maybe even yourself, Susanna, if you are available. I don't know if you are, can propose it and host that room. So finally, before we go, just wanted to say that we are going to, some of people have had a small technical difficulties. If for those of you that had that, we will send during today or until tomorrow morning the link for the meeting of tomorrow, so everything will be okay. And finally, just to close, I would like again everybody to invite you to turn on your camera and very quickly just make a very short evaluation of the day. If this meeting today was very interesting, you give me 10 hands. If it was more or less 5, you know, if it was really dull, you would have preferred to be in the office playing solitaire, you put 0. Okay, so please show us your evaluation of the day. How interesting was this event today for you? Okay, it was interesting. Thank you very much. From my side, it was also very interesting and a pleasure to have you here. So see you tomorrow. Please come a little bit before at 8:30, so we're sharp at 9 to start. It's been a pleasure. I hope you have a great day and have fun. And please explore the harbor and the links we put on the platform and have fun. See you tomorrow. Thank you.
I think.